trip the previous September. The convoy meets obstacle after obstacle. Matters are made worse for the Belgians when their vehicle develops a gearbox fault, which has to be fixed at the trackside. The going is made so treacherous because there appears to be a safe, if dusty, surface. In fact, the dust covers a deadly layer of slippery mud. Every single climb has to be approached with the utmost caution. One mistake could spell disaster. But the Argentinians are safely through this time. Then the biggest obstacle so far. Yet another landslip blocks progress. There's nothing for it but to bring out the metal roadway tracks and manhandle them into position. Eventually, the makeshift road is ready for the ultimate test. The Land Rover has to be lined up inch perfect. But the Brits make it over without any problem. The teams are now more than 1,500 meters above sea level on the pass between Mount Camini and Basago. And on the whole, they're glad of the altitude, which brings cooler air and fewer mosquitoes. The Japanese get a bit too close for comfort, but there's no harm done this time. Gently does it for Germany. But there's a traffic jam up ahead as the convoy is halted by a massive tree root blocking the way. Pickaxes, chainsaws, winches, axes and muscle are the only answer if there's to be any further progress today. Inch by inch, the gigantic root is levered and coaxed out of the way before the teams eventually heave it over the side and send it plunging down the ravine. But it's still not easy for the trailblazers to get through. But they get by with a little help from their friends. The true spirit of the Camel Trophy wins through again. While the British and Swiss teams go on ahead to try and repair the route, the others set about repairing the ravages of the winter. There are more holes to fill in and more trees to fell, before the show is back on the road at last. In 14 hours, they have completed just 54 kilometers. On the way, 31 trees have been cut, and the winches have been in action 16 times. All the classic Camel Trophy elements within a single day.
Well, in some parts it was very hard, in some other ones it wasn't that much, but we have to stop for a long time because we are one car and then we have to wait for the rest of the companion. So for one vehicle, 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles would be alright, but for 18 vehicles it's kind of a slow down everything, you know.
Which part do you think was the most difficult?
Well, as far as work, it was when that landslide that we have to dig all the way for the vehicles, you know. Cutting trees, and that's not that difficult. In some other parts it was kind of tricky. It wasn't that much work, but you have to use your mind more than your hands, you know.
What sort of preparation have the Spanish team done for this sort of work?
Well, I think we've been mostly prepared for this, more than for the special task that we made a couple of days ago. You know, we haven't been using so much the travel trip and the calculators and watches so much. We feel like this is more adventure than chrono type of action, you know. So we've been training for this, for winching and showering, digging, everything.
So Camel Trophy has lived up to expectations for you?
So far, yeah.
Lagi boleh sambil makan malam kan, sambil tengok movie ni.
Headlamps splitting the dark of the night, the Camel Trophy train continues its relentless progress. Everything seems to be going smoothly, but trouble always strikes just when you least expect it. This time it's the Turkish team, leaders in the competitive part of the event, who find themselves sidelined. Their Land Rover 110 has soaked up so much punishment that the front differential finally cried enough and had to be disconnected. Fortunately, a replacement had been requested earlier when the British team thought theirs was on the way out. Everyone mucks in to lend their comrades a hand. A remarkable bond has been forged between the participants in the true spirit of comradeship that is the aim of the Camel Trophy. After a long night's work supervised by Australian mechanic Fred Wanicek, the show is back on the right track and ready for the painstaking descent from the mountains. The event helicopter, called into action to fly in parts for the stricken Turks, keeps an eye on the trekkers as they wind through the hairpin turns of the muddy mountain track. Now they are out of the mountains, the temperatures soar again, and water is a welcome sight as they head towards the coast. At the lunchtime halt, there'll be the chance of a bath and a change of clothes, the first for several days. The only problem in the convoy is a gear selection gremlin which halted the Japanese for a while. It took 2 hours to fix, then the Japanese team promptly drove into a ditch, so eager were they to make up for lost time. In addition to the 12 team vehicles, the Camel Trophy convoy also contains a further 6 support Land Rovers, carrying supplies, first aid equipment, provisions and other essential cargo. This time it's one of these which finds itself on its side. By now it is a well-drilled team that springs into action with winches, pulleys, muscle power and know-how to right the stricken automobile. A rescue that would have taken hours at the beginning of the event is now completed in half the time.
Wait a second, I'm releasing this out.
And the Camel Trophy travellers continue on their way. The United Kingdom's Jim Benson and Mark Day tackle one of the most treacherous climbs in the entire event. Despite the absence of rain in this area, the steep track is still dangerous, clinging to the mountainside. Further up the trail, the edges are crumbling, and there's barely room for a Land Rover 110 to pass.